All right, everybody, it is American Idol Unaired, the singers you didn't see. And this week's singer that you didn't see on this season of American Idol is Grace Pehrman. Grace, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bennett. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to talk to you. Now, we didn't get to see you on this season of American Idol, but we're going to get to know more about you today. And I would love if you could just tell us more about who you are and who you are as an artist. Anything that you want to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. Yes, my name is Grace Pehrman. I am 20 years old. I am mostly a blues rock soul singer. My cat is right here in my bed.
That's
Uh,
cool.
I'm mostly a blues rock soul singer. I sing a lot of old stuff as well as my own new stuff. I really, really like to put on a show. So I really strive for stage performance and energy in my face and my body while I sing and perform. And I play piano as well, as you'll see behind me. So I played keys for myself in my audition. And that was a big part of like my identity on the show.
Hmm. That's a really, just combining so many unique genres. I'm curious how you got into that music, maybe growing up and who your influences were.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up like a lot of a lot of people with dads did, listening to classic rock. And so a lot of that came from my dad. I got into like blues more after I was a jazz singer for a really long time, and I actually still am a jazz singer. And that kind of all meshes together into one thing. So I got into blues that way, and then I've always just really really loved rock and soul.
Hmm.
And during genre round on the show, I was a soul singer.
That's awesome. So, speaking of American Idol, I'm curious if you were approached by the show or if you chose yourself to go and audition.
I was actually approached by this show. So I've been posting some stuff on my Instagram and YouTube, whatever, for a while. And then casting director found a great friend of mine who was also on the show with me, Tyler Christian. And then she found me through Tyler, and she invited me to a producer only audition. So at the producer only audition, you go in there and it's just producers and you do your thing. And then they can ask for a callback or not. And so I did that. They asked for a callback. I got some notes. I did the callback, and they're like, "Hey, you're on the show."
So, what did you sing when you went to the audition?
I sang "Your Smile" by Shaka Khan and Rufus.
Wow.
It's like a big soul power ballad. It's very, very, very showy and very fun.
Uh-huh. Wow. And so what city, once you actually got to the judges, where do they send you for that?
I went to Nashville, and I
Nice.
also got to go with my friend Tyler, who was also sent to Nashville. So we did the whole
Hmm.
process together, which is really great.
That's fun. And a lot of listeners know by now that it is quite a long process. I mean, they edit it down to only a few minutes, or you know, uh, going into the judges' room. But there's filming, there's B-roll, there's interviews, there's so many things going on that day. Not to mention, you may not even get to go in the judges' room on the first day of auditions. At what point in the week did you get to go?
It was kind of like a set of 3 or 4 days that they set us up for. And so the first day we got there, did some introductory meetings and stuff. Second day was kind of filming B-roll and like interviews and stuff. And then the day after, which was a Sunday, I did my audition. It's a lot of waiting for really long periods of time. And then all of a sudden it's like, go, 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 get like
Right.
all of the filming stuff done. And then it's like you're waiting for another 4 hours again. So it's a lot of stop and start.
Yeah. Now being around so many other musicians, which is like a fusion of all these genres and styles and kids of different ages and different backgrounds. I mean, was it fun to sort of be in that environment? Do you think were you guys focused on kind of getting to know each other, or was it more about being in your own headspace so you could prepare for your moment to audition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I go to a school, I go to music school, so I'm always surrounded by musicians. So I think that headspace was really nice to go into that being like, hey, everyone's here is on the same page, and everyone here is like we all want the same goal, and we all very feel very passionate about our personal craft. So I think the majority of people I met were fantastic, beautiful, kind people, and everyone was just really, really great. We all enjoyed getting to know each other. It was like you go to people like, "What's your name? What are you singing? Like, when are you
Yeah.
going?" It was like that script, and I just met so many really great people.
Yeah, it's almost like you're the judge asking them, "So what's your name? Where are you from?" And instead you're
Yeah.
competing with them. But no, it's got to be an interesting experience because you're all there. It's like I feel like it probably gets harder and harder as the show goes on, because when you are in the beginning, I think it's probably all about that common goal of just getting a yes, because you're not really at the point yet where it's about like, oh, I have to beat you. It's just about we both want to get through, because there is room for both of us. It's, I've heard a lot of people say that, it's television and it's a competition, but really at the end of the day, it is a pretty supportive environment, at least starting
Yeah.
out, because you guys all have the same goal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very true. And even friends of mine who made it really, really far, they're all great friends with everyone in the competition. Like it's not really like I'm gonna try to do better than you. It's more like I just want to put on the best that I can do. And like recognizing that each person has their own very unique thing that sets them apart. So when you have that many unique people in a room, it's really cool to see what is made and what happens.
Right. Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, because they're getting, if I'm correct, they're getting some B-roll of you guys playing, just like sitting outside, and some people have guitars, and other times they're just doing a
Yeah.
cappella. But I can only imagine if there's like a way to compile all that footage of you guys jamming out together, that could make for like some great entertaining. That can make for a great segment, because it's just like amazing musicians all in one place.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they put this on the show this season. But they did they had us like they had some people like we were all like there's like what's called like the on-camera holding room, which is
Uh
like
huh.
that it's like a outside deck in Nashville that we
Right.
were on. And so we would be sitting there and they'd be like well they would like arrange our seating arrangements and be like you guys just like have a conversation which is cute. It's gonna be more people that way. And then they would have people like a friend of mine was like all right everybody let's get up and dance and so like they would have us like all like join a little dance party. It was really cute.
Wow. So again, there's so much that goes into the process before you even make it to the judges. And at what point during the day that you went, was it like you get up, you're like third or fourth, or you got to wait a long time? What happened?
So I am a diva. So I like to do 2 hours of hair and makeup before seeing a camera at all. So I would get up at like 4 a.m. and do that.
Hmm.
So I was up before we had our call time for at 8 p.m. 8, sorry, 8, pardon me, 8 a.m. For audition day. And if you use audition day, you would go out, wait in the off-camera holding room and the on-camera holding room for a little bit, and then you're just kind of sitting there like nervous, and then they're like
Yeah.
hey, you're up, and they would take one of the PAs would take you to the room to backstage, and you get mic'd, get scanned and everything, and then they'd send you in.
How are you feeling when it's finally time to see Katie, Lionel, and Luke?
It was wild. It was probably the craziest thing I've done. It was like I don't know, I was outside. I'm not a very I don't get nervous on stage, but the thing was this wasn't a stage. Like it was just like national television and then like
Right.
three really, really famous people.
Yes.
um yeah, so it was like I'm never nervous on stage, but I remember being backstage about to go in, not back out of the room, about to go into the room, and I was like this is probably the most scared I've ever been. Not like scared, but like I was just like it was just so much emotion, like all up here, because I'm like this is the thing that gets filmed, and like it's a lot of like this either goes really really well or I embarrass myself somehow or something like that. And but when I was actually in the room, like I think a lot of people you'll probably talk to say like I don't remember. I
Yeah.
don't remember like
Yeah.
what I mean. I remember singing. I remember a mistake I made in the form of the song I had arranged, and I remember messing that up, and I was like oh. And I remember the judges being fantastic, and
Mm.
but I don't really remember being nervous in the room. I was just like all
Hmm.
right, I'm gonna do this now.
Well, I guess if you said it's hard to remember, it might be difficult to kind of go into much detail. But I'm curious if there's a lot of banter going on with the judges, if you remember talking, or if it's more just like, all right, we want to hear you sing.
Yeah, I actually did a lot of banter. I because a part of the stuff I do in my day job is besides music and besides like working, I also write for comedy.
Mm.
So I really enjoy like telling silly stupid jokes or like being annoying. And so I went into the room. They were Luke and Katie were talking about some like Luke's dog or something like that. And I made a joke about my dog before I even like spoke to them. And then we were like talking and I made a joke about me being like a dumb blonde or like something something
Oh.
like that. It was just like I don't remember what happened, but there was a good amount of banter. And when I got my when I they didn't show this in the show, but when I got my ticket, I got all three S's and I got my ticket. And like there's like that wall of tickets that you like
Yeah.
pick from. And I was like, guys, which is like the most awkward one for me to take? Because they're like all lined up, and Katie was like
Right.
just like the bottom corner, like because some poor PA has to go in there and like replace it. So I was like, which
Right.
will make their job the hardest?
Oh my
And
God.
so I did that, and I got like a bottom corner
Oh
ticket.
wow.
But that was the kind of banter. It was really fun.
Ah. So what song did you sing?
I sang "Your Smile" by Shaka Khan.
Oh, the same song
That's
that you sang previously in the producer round.
Yes, the producers loved that song, and they really liked how showy it was, and my face is very animated when I perform it. In like the preliminaries, I also did like I did a medley of like "Don't You Worry About a Thing" with like Havana, with me
Oh.
playing, and I also did I think I did a Yeba song as well, called
hmm
"Distance."
Cool. Well, obviously you got a yes, which is great, but what was the general feedback that you got from that performance?
It was overwhelmingly positive, which I was really surprised. I remember like Katie was like, "You have like a magic trick," and she also said like, "This was." I was like, "I don't remember." I don't was like, "I can't believe she said this." She said I had one of the best voices they heard all season, and I was like,
Wow.
"Oh my god," like that's big. And so yeah, Lionel was so kind, just like such a genuine, authentic soul, and like he was very like I don't know. He was a lot like we like I love what you have. I want to see you like refine these certain things. And it was
hmm
all very helpful feedback. I remember I did some ad libs during my song where I got really like into it. I was like, woo, or something like that. And I don't think Luke liked that very much, but Katie was like, no, I love that. Cause like the music's like coming out of her. And so yeah, it was really positive, and they gave some really good feedback. It was really great.
Yeah, and I imagine that some of that like constructive criticism, whether they were split on the ad-libbing or anything that they wanted, to see you do as far as improvements, I feel like as a singer who's getting praised, it still feels good to get that little bit of constructive criticism, right? Because you always want to improve no matter how great you just did.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if like I could do like the greatest performance of my life and I would still be like, all right, what can I do better? Like
Right.
there's the moment you're in a room and like you're the best person in that room, you got to move on. Like you
Right.
can't be like, you got to be, there's always room to improve. You can accept your own excellence, but you also have to be like, there's so many minds to see and learn from and critiques to hear. So I think there's never a point where you have to stop and be like, I figured everything out, you know.
Kind of getting back to that point about how, you're all really there to support each other as far as your fellow competitors. Do you feel that you also learn from them in addition to what you learn from the judges?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think mostly it was just really cool seeing people like it was so cool because music is such a transcendental language where you would be like, you have nothing in common with this person and be like, oh my gosh, did you like sing this song? They're like, yeah, I'm like, that's like my favorite artist ever. And
Yeah.
so it was really cool to like, and get new music from people. Like we would be backstage and be like, have you heard this song? Have you heard this artist? And so I have like new music I learned from just contestants on the show. And it's really a cool collaborative area.
Any particular memories from the audition round of people you may have met that we may have seen or not, depending on if they aired, but anybody that stuck out to you as far as talent or just a moment you shared with them in
Yeah.
Nashville?
Yeah. I made some really great friends. None of them were aired of the group that I really enjoyed spending time with. Tyler Christian, my friend Danny C, Zia, Louisa Wilson are fantastic, fantastic singers and vocalists and musicians and everything in between. Great people. And you didn't see them on the show, but they were fantastic. I did become friends with Cadence Baker, who was
hmm
aired and got to a few later rounds, and she's a sweetheart. She's really really
hmm
a beautiful person. But yeah, there's some really awesome people.
Yeah, well, what's cool for me is doing this podcast. I actually know almost all those names, which is a privilege because most people didn't get to see these awesome faces and hear their voices. But it's been really fun to get to know you guys. And American Idol's got a much bigger cast than you might originally think if you watch the show. It's crazy
Yes.
how many of
Yeah.
you guys don't get aired. You get to see everybody. You get through the audition, and then getting to Hollywood Week. That's when you really. I mean, you're not just with people from Nashville now. You're with people from every other city, LA and Austin, and this is when I guess, if it is a competition, things really heat up. And because they're heating up, are you feeling any more nervous or is it more just like that excitement because you love music?
I was definitely not as nervous. That's for sure. I remember being like a little more, my headspace I don't think was as great as it was in Nashville, because I think I had a lot of adrenaline. And so I remember being in Hollywood, it was a lot like, okay, I really care about these people that I'm here with, and I want to push them forward, but I also have to, like, because this is more competitive, I have to like isolate, focus on like my own craft right now, and take the critique from the judges and the feedback, and like narrow that in, and make sure it's really solid. So it was I think it was a bit more nerve wracking, just because it was like, now you're up against your friends. When in the first round it was like you're just like showing them who you are, like you want to get a ticket, but now it's like, hey, comparing you to like a beautiful person you met in
Right.
Nashville or in LA or whatever like that.
So, getting to Hollywood, and again, tons of other talented people. Do you think that was it the kind of thing where, knowing that you were on a TV show, that overall it was a little bit intimidating for you guys, just to like know that there was crew members and there's cameras loading in, or do you think that you were all just like so hyped and so thrilled to get the opportunity to have the exposure?
Hmm. It was, I don't know, I think the first when I first came to Nashville, I saw like a TV camera set up, and I sent a picture to my friend. I was like, guys, like this is sick.
Yeah,
And then when I get to Hollywood, it was like the set was gorgeous, and I mean
yeah.
every the set design is insane. Like there's so many pictures of like this beautiful layout. But
Mm.
I think when you get to Hollywood, you feel like a little bit of a diva, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I've seen a camera before, so like, you
Mm.
know.
Wow. Um, and it's a long process. So, because as if it's not a lot to get, however many dozen people are in a city auditioning, you now have probably 150 plus singers that they've all got to get camera ready. The judges are arriving, and there's, I'm sure, a lot more B-roll as well, right? You're doing interviews and other things to prepare for the next round.
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of, and once again, it was a lot of like on camera holding room hangouts. So we would
Right.
be. I remember it was just so cold. It was so
Uh,
cold, man.
that's
We
December,
were we were
right?
in LA.
Yeah.
It was December, but I was, because I'm an idiot. I was in LA, and I was like, I don't need to bring a jacket. It's LA. And it was like, we were sitting outside like 30 degrees for just hours, and just on camera, just like they were like, we need a shot of you guys talking, or you guys looking nervous, or or something like that the producers would ask of you. And that's also when they had like the celeb mentors come out. So I got to meet Jordan Sparks and Haley Reinhart, who are two fantastic, crazy, amazing singers. So that was the waiting around period.
Was it Jordan or Haley? Did you get to work with both of them, one or the other?
So my genre was soul, my for like the genre round. So that means Haley was our mentor. So it was kind of us sitting around. I think I may have been doing an interview when she was talking to our group, because I don't remember it, but I do remember talking to Jordan for a bit. And Jordan was doing, I believe, the pop genre, or
Yeah.
something like that. So we got to talk a bit. Haley is actually one of my favorite singers ever. Not just because of like her work in soul, but because of her work in jazz, really, and of
Hmm.
her work in rock, which are two of my things, is jazz and rock. And so I really admired her as a singer. So it was really cool hearing what they have to say, and watching my friend Skylar, who I forgot to mention earlier, was wonderful. I got to talk with her a bit, and it was really cool to hear, be like, oh, she was like she asked me to sing a bit for her, and like gave me some uh, critiques and stuff like that. And was like, I love your voice. It was really cool.
Right. Yeah. And didn't I think Haley's done Postmodern Jukebox? Yeah. I think she's done some videos with them, and
Yeah,
she's
she had a really famous cover of "Creep." I think is the really big
yeah,
one. But that's where I first learned of her, and then I was like, she has a whole solo career, and I was like, this eats like this. I love
yeah,
her stuff a lot. And she can do it all. She can do Joplin, she can do jazz, she can do whatever she wants. Pop,
yeah. So
yeah.
versatile. Um, so for genre challenge, what is your song,
I sing "Hard Times" by Ray Charles.
and how did you feel that this performance went?
Ah, that's the kicker. So the judges' feedback from Nashville was like, we love your voice, we love your energy, we want to see it more controlled and a little more emotional. So I went into, out of the entire competition in Hollywood Week, I was the only person who sang a cappella, uh, which
Wow.
means which which means no music behind it. It was just me,
Yeah.
voice on stage, empty stage. So I was the only person who did that out of the entire competition. I'm not sure if it's happened before in past seasons, but I know it was impactful, I think. Um, And so, because I took their feedback and I was like, well, they want to see something stripped and emotional, so I'm going to give them something stripped and emotional. The song is about like, uh, my mother told me before she passed away, when I'm gone, don't forget to pray. It's very like, it's very here, in your
Yeah.
heart and soul. And so I sang that. It was a cappella. I think vocally it was spot on. Like I feel very confident in my vocal performance. And this is something I do before every show. I'm backstage and I'm like, hey, I know how to sing this. I know what I'm gonna sing, and I know how I want to sound, and then I go do the show.
Hmm.
So that's a great headspace to do in, which I did that before. I think my problem with that performance was I don't know if I was in my head, but I don't think I was delivering as much as from my heart as I like to, because I think I was like, I'm on a stage in a famous theater in front of three famous people and like a crowd of my good friends who are
Yeah.
all trying to do the same thing, and cast and crew, and there's cameras and stuff. And just, it was a gorgeous stage. Like there's lights everywhere and there's cameras like flying in at you and stuff like that. So I think I was a bit more in my head, and I was also thinking about some friends and how they're doing, and making sure they're less nervous before they go
Yeah.
on, which I think I probably should have focused a bit more on myself in that period.
Well, I think it's very easy when you're surrounded by so many people. I mean, I kind of, as a viewer, I look at it and I wonder, is this like going to music camp, being with everybody else? And because and it is like, I mean, gosh, the process is grueling in terms of, I mean, how far did you get? Did you make it past genre challenge?
No, genre challenge, I was sent home.
Okay. But even just going through the first round, I mean, it's long hours, and I imagine, if you had been there for the duets and the showstoppers, like just staying up all night, and you get close with these people through that. And again, even if you're there for the first round, it's just everybody meeting, and it's a bonding experience, and you're never gonna forget it. So I feel like, regardless of how far you go in the competition, it's easy to soak in everything around you and everybody around you. And even though maybe you could have focused more on yourself, it must have just been such a pleasure to get to be around these people that you are going to look back fondly on it and say, you know what, I made some really great friends, and maybe I was thinking about them, but it's also great because I met them.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, I remember being in the line. So everyone in my salon had just performed, and we were waiting for like the eliminations, which you are waiting, you're waiting off stage, and you are petrified. Like it is like, I think I mean, I had known it wasn't my best like emotional performance. Vocally, I was like, okay, that was great. But I remember being like, I was like had my head between my knees. I was like, this is so like, why am I crying? Like for no reason.
Right.
It was like all this emotional buildup. There's so much emotionally charged like things you're feeling. And I remember I was next to Cadence, and like I was like, let's just like breathe for a second. And
Right.
so we were doing that backstage. But it's really cool. I'm still in contact with a bunch of people, and a bunch of people we're talking about doing collaboration stuff, which is great. So a friend of mine, Danny, we're working on doing like a duet series or something like that. Tristan was in my line, who went pretty far. Cadence was in my line. Kevin, as well as Skylar. Skylar is the ballet dancer, who sang
Hmm.
the Donny Hathaway song that got aired. It was fantastic. It was a good amount of people actually that got some great airtime.
I mean, musically, I think it's probably just like a melting pot. There's just so many different artists who you never may have met if it weren't for this opportunity.
Absolutely. And like there's people, so I go to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and there's my friend Delaney, who was the singing babysitter who got aired
Yeah.
one of the first episodes. She goes to Berklee, and I had no idea. I met her in LA, I believe, in the hotel lobby. And she was like, I go to Berklee. I was like, I literally like we live across the street from each other, like really genuinely. So that was really, really cool to meet people I didn't know I already knew technically.
Mm.
So
I'm sure that there's so much that you've taken away and things that you've learned and things that you'll take with you as you move forward.
definitely. I mean, even that name, even like in my Instagram bio, like I wasn't aired. I'm like,
Right.
I mean, like you're putting it in your bio, of course, because like
Right.
people see it and they're like, okay, cool, and
Yeah.
it does hold a lot of weight to it, even if you aren't aired. And I'm proud of myself. I have my little ticket on the wall still, like it's up
Wow.
there at the
Okay, that's
top.
legit.
So
Wow.
it's cool to just, it's cool to just have been a part of it.
I'm wondering when you're backstage, like waiting for the decision at the genre challenge, because on TV they edit it down. Like, do you know how thorough they are in terms of like talking through each contestant and saying, well, like I want to think about this person and that person, or is it more of like a quick?
It was really funny because I was on stage with my line and they went down the line and talked to every single person and like but me. And it was like, but the critiques was like, we know you can sing, like it's really good. We want to see a little bit more of this, like done, next person.
Hmm.
It was kind of like that. So it is pretty quick.
I'm curious also if you're watching this season, if you've been keeping up with everything.
I'm gonna tell you something that is terrible. I have still I've I've never seen an episode of American Idol in my life.
Really? That is
And even
interesting.
even after I've been on the show, I've never watched an episode. I I think I watched, or a full episode at least. I watched a bit to catch a friend of mine. And they weren't even on it. So I
Right.
was so I was like, okay. And I was kind of tuning and I was texting my friends, hey, was like, do you know if you're gonna be aired this week? They were like, no, ended up not being aired like me. So I was like, I mean, I'll support, like I'll watch it for my friends who were aired, of course, but
Yeah.
I never just have never seen a full episode.
Wow. That's funny, you
Which
know,
I'm
because
maybe not my best moment, but the producers on the show thought that was really funny because I was in my interviews and doing my confessionals, and they
yeah,
were like, "What's like your favorite Idol moment?" And I was like, "Guys,
right.
I don't know."
No, that's
you
that's
know?
TV gold. I don't know. That would have it would have made for an interesting moment. But regardless, I mean, I think that whether or not you've been on the show, I mean, heck, you're going to it with like fresh eyes. Like having not watched the show, you can kind of just go
Yeah,
in, do
yeah.
your own thing. That's maybe a unique thing to think about.
I think it was beneficial.
Yeah. I'm curious also about Berklee because going to a music school, and you're not the first guest I've talked to who has gone to music school. So actually, I my very first guest, her name was Julia. She graduated in 2 years, and I want to say either completely remotely or like COVID hit at some point. So like done with college in 2 years, age 20, which is like, wow, I could never do that. But we talked some about how, what it's like to go there, but also being in music school in general. I mean, I think there's so much you could probably talk about it by being around musicians all the time. I'm sure that it's a blast.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing. I mean, every single big opportunity I've had has come from connections made here, basically. Like Idol was I like the casting director from Idol found me through my friend who was one of my best friends at Berklee here. Like I've done well, I mean, I didn't do these, but American Idol does visit Berklee and holds auditions just for Berklee students,
Yeah,
actually, which is crazy because a good amount of the show comes from Berklee. The pool of singers I mean, just in the US is massive, but you all kind of end up knowing each other in
yeah,
a certain sense, either through social media now, just making the world smaller, or just through like gigging and stuff. Like, or if you meet someone on a gig and you're like, do you like you're singing and you like follow each other on Instagram, you're like, oh, I know this mutual person. You're like, yeah, they're like my greatest friend. Like it's
right.
funny because it's just, you don't know them directly, there's a connection somewhere.
Of course. And then talk about Idol and Hollywood Week being like a music camp. I mean, is that, I'm sure that going from like being in high school where like music is just kind of something that you do, but not everybody does music, to suddenly being around everybody else who does the same thing as you, that's got to be like, oh my God, I can't imagine what orientation is like just to get there for the first time, to be with other people that are singing and playing, like insanity, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely like that. I mean, in my high school, my senior class of high school is 15 kids, and
Wow.
I am the only one. It's tiny. I'm the
Yeah.
only one who pursued a degree in art or the like. So I mean, I'm also a physical artist as well, and I do like music, and I write and stuff like that. Um, but going to orientation, you're used to being like the best at what you do in like a class of 15 people, and then it's like thousands of people and they're all better than you. That's what your mind says to you.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that, but it was interesting because Idol was a similar experience where like I mean, I've been surrounded by musicians for the last 10 years because my whole family is musicians and I've been in bands since. But like we go to Idol and like I think it's a lot of, especially younger contestants, first times being around people who also do what they do when they're used to being the best of what they do in their small town or their high school or whatever. So we would be like on set in the hotel, or sorry, offset in the hotel, and there'd be people playing their guitars just constantly and
Yeah.
singing, and just like it's a lot of like there's like it's like a very jam sessiony, but like there's a lot of people just hanging around and be like, look what I can do, and just sitting in the hotel like singing till like 4 a.m. and just
Yeah.
like blowing out their voice and stuff, but it's fun. It's a fun experience because like, oh my gosh, there's so many people who are passionate about the same thing I am, so it's cool to see. It's cool to be thrown into that and have that energy in the room.
Oh yeah, it's like just artists in their natural habitat. I mean, what more could you ask
Mhm.
for? I'm sure it's just
Yeah.
constant fun. I mean, I had 30 kids in my grade, so I thought my grade was small, but you have me beat there with 15.
Yeah, no way, man. It was really tiny.
Oh my gosh. Do you say you do do you do drawing, painting, art? What's your medium?
Yeah, yeah. Let me
I
grab
was just
something.
gonna
Hang
say
on.
I saw something. I don't know if that's yours or not, but
Yeah, of course. So I have I'm mostly a painter. This is one of mine. This is a graphite drawing of just
wow.
this chick red. I also have a gallery in my kitchen of all my oil paintings.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
started doing this a few years ago, but here's some of them.
Wow. That's
I
beautiful.
have a, Thank you. I have a massive one there, one up there. And then yeah, I've been it's kind of like my like hobby, but I've started doing commission work for some friends of mine, and under my ticket is another painting I did.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I try to fill up my place with art as much as I can because it's cool to have your own personal touch because you
Oh
made
my
it with your
God. No, I
hands.
love that. Whether it's drawing or painting or singing or playing. I mean, do you feel like you get different things out of the different ways you of expressing yourself, or do you feel like in general just being creative produces this one kind of emotion?
God, you're such a good interviewer. Okay,
Thank you.
that's great. I think I mean, music is like breathing for me. Like singing
Yeah.
is just, it just comes out, and it's like, that is the most comfortable artistic pursuit I have when it comes to I like, I also bake as well. So when it comes to like baking
Of course you vague.
or
Like
like, it's like cake decorating.
yeah.
It's like that, or like literally doing like physical art. Like this is something like, I studied fine art for several years and classical realism and stuff like that. And so
Mm.
like it's cool to make my own technique out of that. But like I think physical art comes from me being like, I need just something that's not music right now when
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by it, completely entrenched in like music all the time, So it's really nice to have something else. Um and it's very relaxing for me, but then also I get really perfectionist-y and I'm like, okay, well this shadow is wrong,
Right.
And so that's just how I was raised with like fine art learning. But I mean, even when you're at Berklee and everyone's a musician, it's funny to ask people like, okay, what do you do that's not music? And
Right.
they ramble a bit, and so
Right.
I'm like, I bake, I do art, I take care of animals and stuff like that. And it's just like it's cool to have something else.
What's the most delicious thing you bake?
Oh my, I make a really mean sticky toffee pudding. And I'm really happy about that. I got really into cake decorating during like COVID.
Yeah.
I've made like birthday cakes for my family and friends, and I've done like uh, I've done like really crazy things like with like I've done like the fondant stuff and like the cake off stuff and
Yeah.
and really I just really got into it. It's fun to have something to do with your hands. It's not
Mm.
like music.
Maybe if you want to get back into the TV competition game, just sign up for next season of MasterChef or
I
did
know. I'm thinking.
did you okay,
Yeah.
did you hear about that show? I forget what it's called. It's on Netflix, but it's like it's something along the lines of like is it a cake or not a cake? And like they're like you can't tell which one's that cake because they're all like sculptures or something and you have to figure out which one's edible.
Bennett, my friend, that is the best show I've ever seen in my title. It was so good. It was so good for no reason. It was just like we were like Tyler and I, who was also an Idol, we're watching it, and we watched like the entire season in just one sitting, and we were like, "This is good for no reason,"
Yeah.
because you're watching it and you're like, you get really into it, and you're like, "There's no way in hell that is like real," and it's really fun. So maybe that's in the cards. Who knows?
Who knows? Wait, what? So give me the official title because I don't want to butcher it. What show do people need to go watch? What's it called? Something about cake?
It's called Is It Cake?
Oh, just Is It Cake? Okay, good. That's simple. Is
Oh,
It Cake on Netflix? My ADD mind's going everywhere right now because I can talk about baking, I can talk about singing, I can talk about art. What inspires you at the age which you'll tell me what age that you decided that you also wanted to pursue fine art in addition to singing?
I don't think it's something that I'm like, I'm gonna pursue fine art. I think it's something that I do in my free time. But I started fine art when I was about 10, and at a really great studio. Her name is Rebecca Tate. She's a fantastic artist, oil painter, graphite, anything, any medium. And I started doing that. And then I kind of just, I actually have been a classical pianist longer than anything else. So I started doing, that was like before anything else. I was like 6 years old. And then I got into art. And then singing kind of happened developing along the way. And now it's like
Hmm.
my main thing.
Wow. So another thing, classical piano. That's awesome. I want to see how many more we can add before the interview's over. Like, no, it's great. Like, I think whether it's a similar thing that you get out of all these creative outlets as a whole, or it's the particular kind of things that each medium does for you, I feel like as a fellow creative, I mean, it's so important. Like, I'm huge on mental health. I have another podcast called Mental Health on the Mic, and we've talked about how being creative is just such a key way to stay mentally healthy, right? Because in a crazy world, I feel like expressing yourself, whether it's with happiness or sadness or anger or confusion, I think we all need some way, however we want to find a way to express what we're feeling. It's so important to be in tune with those feelings, and art allows us to do that.
Absolutely. I think there's nothing more therapeutic. I mean, I have several friends at Berklee who are in like music therapy majors. Like they that's their job and it's to make people feel better. For me, music and art and everything is just like like this is like a reflection of like it's like a gift from God, you know? And so this is like me, all it is a reflection of how good he's been to me. And so it's a very spiritual thing for me as well, I think.
That's a deep thing to it's bigger than yourself,
Absolutely.
and your spirituality and what you believe in. That I'm sure that's what carries you through the process of whether it's pursuing a music career or it's getting through school or anything you do in life. I imagine that you have that knowledge in your mind of like, God's got me.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, like I think like even backstage, like to tie back to Idol, like I was about to go in for Nashville and I had been thinking about this verse from I think it was I believe it's John where Jesus is like, do you he's talking to his disciples and he says, do you believe that I'm able to do this? And the disciple is like, yeah. And then Jesus goes, then let it be done. And I said that outside of my audition room and I was like, this, because I was reading it that day and I was like, why does this fit so well for what I'm about to do? And I said it out so you can maybe even hear it on my mic. But I went into the room after I said that. It's just really encouraging, and I have such a strong hope and a strong faith where like I think just like a career in music is so like tornado-y. Like it's so many. There's so many ups and downs, and there's so many rejections, and there's so many like there's not really a lot of certainty unless you're doing like you have a steady job as like a session musician or a steady job as like a TV gig, but like even those can fall through anytime. So you get signed to a label, you could just get dropped. It's I have a faith where I'm like, I mean anything that's gonna happen is gonna work out for a reason, and anything that's gonna happen is
Hmm.
is is beneficial in the long run. I mean, I got voted off of Idol, and a friend of mine, I believe it was Yoli, who was aired as well.
Oh, I
She
love
was
her.
backstage. Fantastic singer, great
Yeah.
person. And I think I was a little down, and she was like, it's not this isn't like this isn't like a dead end, it's just a fork in the road.
Mm.
It's not like this is a rejection, you're done. This is just a different path that's going to lead you to another place, and it's going to be equally or even if not better.
I think that's cool that Yoli said that because I don't know if you know this, but she was on America's Got Talent and made it pretty
I
far a
didn't
couple
hear
years
that.
ago. So, I mean, I know that she got cut a little bit earlier this time around, but I think that to still have such a positive attitude, even when something doesn't go the way it did the previous time. Um, and I also think that all you're doing, and I think that you and Yoli are two examples of this, you're bringing your complete authentic selves to the table. And I think that's all that anybody can ask of you. And I think that when you really do that reflection, that's all you can really ask of yourself, right? Is to say, I will arrive as myself. And, I imagine that's what God wants for you too, is to not, go someplace and not be who you are and try to be who they want you to be because you're going on a television show. You're in freaking Hollywood, California. There's a lot of people being who they aren't really supposed to be. And you're being yourself and you're bringing that to the table. So I think that that's like so respectable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think my mindset, even on Idol and just in life in general, like if I'm not doing the best that I can and being my most authentic, it's not worth doing, or
Yeah.
it's not worth even spending the energy on. Because if you're not bringing, I mean, people read you like a book. People are mostly good readers. So if someone can tell that you're like BSing something, like
Yeah.
it's very obvious, and you're not going to go far at all if you're not being authentic, bringing that energy backstage or on camera or whatever.
Right. Right. I gotta ask about the comedy. You said that you are into comedy, and again, I knew we'd find something else to touch on in the creative realm because you mentioned it. Is it are you just into like writing and stand up? What's the story there?
So I became absolutely obsessed with sitcoms, and I'm a big sitcom fan. I ultimately, after school, I want to do the SNL Childish Gambino route, where I'm
Mm.
doing sitcoms and writing for SNL, or and then also having a full music career.
Yeah.
It's something I started writing my own sitcom. Uh, it's about like a spirit Halloween store that's open year round, and just like the weird stuff that happens in a year round Halloween store. It's kind of silly, but like there's so much there's so much things you can so many things you can laugh about in life. And I really got I've always been a class clown, kind of in not even class, but like so doing that, and I just found a way with screenwriting to be like, okay, well, I can actually make something out of this. It's another thing I make something out of. And so I finished my first pilot last semester. So I'm hopefully going to keep writing episodes of the show, and I have a million sitcom ideas, and it's really fun to just write jokes, or I have my notes are full of jokes, and then I just apply them in story, which is fun.
I have to tell you that that's something we have in common. We could probably talk for 3 hours about screenwriting because well, it's this. I mean, I know it's an American Idol podcast, but you're talking to a fellow screenwriter, so that's something we have in common. I don't even know where to go from here, just because we've gone in so many different directions, and that's awesome, right? But I really I want to kind of sum up this conversation and give you the opportunity to kind of uh, not just promote yourself in social media or wherever people can go to listen to your music, anything, but really like I'm curious if you had to kind of look back. Maybe let's make this go beyond American Idol because there's so many more layers to Grace Pehrman than American Idol. Taking everything that you've experienced on that show, but also what you may be experiencing right now at Berklee and everything that you're currently pursuing and whatever road life is taking you down. Um, what are you looking forward to the most as you think about continuing to wake up every day and continuing to, just enjoy life?
Oh, yeah. That's so good. For me, I'm just such a blessed person. I'm in shock of it every day, with just the people around me, and the way I'm cared for. And it's just I'm very joyful waking up, and that doesn't fade over time. It's joyful is not like an attitude. It's just something you are, and so I think I'm really just excited to just keep, I think, just creation of
Yeah.
anything. Because I mean, there's so many things that my head's full of that I want to put on paper or write or make a movie about or something like that.
Yeah.
I think just creation is just the biggest goal I have, no matter what form.
Uh-huh. Well, I have to say that I highly recommend because these interviews are available to listen to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen, but they're also available to watch on YouTube. And I recommend that you watch this one because you can see the beautiful art that Grace has shown us. And I can tell just in general that you have a very cool vibe going on where you're doing the interviews. So I just think people should get to actually experience that and visualize it. And if you are listening, be sure to leave 5 stars or leave a review, whatever you want. And thank you guys so much for listening to American Idol Unaired. You can follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Idol Unaired Podcast. Grace, where can people follow you? Where can they listen to your music? How can they support you? Take it away.
Thanks, Bennett. They can follow me on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok at Grace Pehrman. Grace Pehrman spelled Pehrman. It's very misleading and it's pronounced like that for no reason. And I am also writing these days, which I haven't done for a little bit. So I'm working on it. Hopefully, maybe suspiciously putting on an album or EP end of this year, maybe next. But I'm really happy with the stuff I've been writing. So American Idol is a lot of fuel. Let me tell you, like,
Yes.
there's good things that happen and bad things that happen. It is a big experience, so you are going to write about it if you're a songwriter.
Oh man, I cannot wait to hear that. Well, Grace, thank you so much for your time and energy, and thank you all for listening or watching. This has been American Idol Unaired.